Weekend previews are done for Saluki softball. It's now postseason previews. The Missouri Valley Conference Tournament is this week in Bloomington, Normal, Illinois, as Illinois State hosts the regular season champions for the first time since 2010. The head coach of that team, Jen Sewell, joins us now. Coach, congratulations. I know this team's goal was exactly what you accomplished. I'm sure there's a feeling within your team of there's a lot more work to do. But this is a rare feat. I mean, it's been since 2010 since you've accomplished a task like this. Is there even any time to somewhat celebrate it or recognize how hard of a feat that your team did accomplish, knowing that you have a group that has way bigger goals to accomplish starting this week with the tournament?
Yeah, I think we all kind of giggled because we locked up that first game on Saturday and everybody was like, it was, golf clap. And I said, hey, guys, you won. Like, you're it. And they were like, oh, we don't, and I think part of that is that was a box they were planning to check. And so it's, take care of game 3 and then let's get on with it. I know one thing we were appreciative of is to finish on Saturday and then come home on Sunday and have a rest day. And I think that's really I saw them briefly yesterday and it definitely had sunk in. I said, you woke up the regular season champions. And I think they realized, too, yes, it was a box they were going to check, but just how hard it is to do that. It's just extremely hard. So many things have to go their way, and they did, and they fought so hard at times, between weather and just little dings and things like that, in moments where, to come back in games, you have to come back in a couple games, you have to take care of business in a couple games, you have to win late. And I think they won in a lot of different ways, and hopefully, they've put all the experience in their bag, and, they'll have it hopefully for 3 games this week.
There are a lot of teams, Coach Sewell, before a season starts that they go, our goal is to win a conference championship. It's one thing to say that's a box you want to check. It's another thing to go out and do it. But it's also completely different to put in the work to get to that point. What did you see from your team in the fall? What did you see them throughout the spring where – yeah, it was a box that the team wanted to check, but what did they do in those times that maybe the fans don't see that you knew this team's going in the right direction?
Well, I think a lot of teams have talked about it over the last, 13, 14 years. I think you start to lose sight of, as teams age and they don't have experience with what it takes to win it, you need some people to understand what it does take. And I think those veteran players realized it takes more than what we've done so far. What is it going to take that we haven't been able to do just yet? And I think part of it was just sticking around, putting in some extra work, understanding and that you will have an up and a down, maybe several times during the season. And you would see different players at different times just come in and work some things out. Whereas before, maybe it was easier just to, say, hey, I'm tired. I'm not swinging the bat really well. I don't want to go out and get really uncomfortable and try to work it out. This team really dove into that uncomfortable factor. Like on a Monday, I need to get out of bed and I need to go lift and I need to go do a little extra recovery and I need to go to the field even by myself or with another coach and just work some things out. And you would see them all the time. You would see them pre-practice, post-practice, on the weekends on their own, putting in a lot of extra work.
In this day and age, there's so much that can be deemed as a transactional period in college athletics, whether people want to talk about what you're getting in NIL or all these other things, which that's not what I want to get into. But my question is, though, your team did all that while also the academic side, where most of your ladies are in extremely difficult majors. And it's not just finding time to go get extra work in at the field. You got to fit that into a day's schedule where most of your ladies are having schedules from almost 6, 7 in the morning till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. That added aspect of it, that your team's been able to accomplish the goals on the field and still more to come, but also they've really valued what this whole experience is supposed to be about, which is you go to college to perform well in athletics, but also to perform well and do well in academics to set yourself up for success once they're done in your program.
Yeah, I think as a coaching staff, when we look at them, you realize, like, that's the most pure amateur experience that you can have at this level. There's nobody's getting paid. Everybody has there's 5 or 6 seniors that are already essentially working, or they're in medical majors, they're in finance majors, they're headed for graduation. They would be graduating this week. So to sort of have that mix of feelings as a real student athlete in this game can be very rough in the sense that, there was a lot of times there was 4 or 5 seniors we didn't see at a formal practice. We would see them before. MJ would be with them on Mondays outside of practice to try to get that level of work in by yourself and have to be really tuned in, and then all of a sudden get to the field and say, yeah, I missed 3 practices this week, but I'm ready to go. That's a certain sense of experience that these veterans have brought to this team. And I think they've really, and that's been our culture, show us the way, right? A Riley Hamilton, a Liz Warwick very quietly, a Maddie Eberly in that bullpen. Where do we want to go? Show us the way. We'll follow you wherever we want to go.
Before we move on to the tournament this week, let's just recap Murray State a little bit. Won games in multiple different ways, and we were in baseball in Bloomington Normal, so didn't get a chance to watch your games. But just looking at the scores and the stats, especially early, when you win a 1-0 game, to me, I was like, what better time to do that than right before the tournament? Because they're like, those are games when you get into a conference tournament, and why early in games where you're like, that one run early, maybe it won't hurt you, but in a conference tournament, that may be the lone run that gets scored. And that's why the added pressure just gets added when you get too late for your team to perform in a game like that where the margin for error is basically very minimal. And no, a championship's on the line too. It felt to me from afar that was a great kind of starting point last weekend before the conference tournament. For you, did you feel that way with your team, that they were able to win multiple ways and multiple games that you're going to be in here starting in just a couple days?
Yeah, I think you're thinking that to yourself as a coaching staff because you look on a piece of paper and these are the 2 best ERAs. And I turned to the third base umpire and he said something about the score, and I said, no, this is going to be 1-0. This is how it was last year. Anytime Bieber throws, she's going to keep you. You're going to have to work. And we had to, typical of our really good defense, we had to make some plays to keep it 1-0. And I think you're exactly right. That is how, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday will go. And, there's a chance, I think, even at one point that we would see them again, in the tournament. So it seems to always work out that way. The team that you just beat comes through the bracket. But I think it's just a testament to the players. I never sensed their pressure. We've talked about it right from minicamp in January. When you put this uniform on, you're sort of feeling the pressure of all the players that have been through this process. And we always talk to them, that's just the expectation. When you signed here, when you came here, there's a certain amount of expectation that goes with wearing that jersey. The fans expect it, the alums expect it, the athletic department expects it. And you get used to operating at that level. And I didn't see any panic at 1-0. I think they knew it was going to be tough to score. And, it takes us some time, and it did, to string a couple things together, and we did, and then we were able to shut it down defensively.
Well, you talked about pressure. You embraced the pressure. I think it's clear that this team has embraced the pressure all year. It's hard to explain. I feel like even the fans, I think fans, when they go to the tournament physically, they do get it. But when the season's on the line and you know that just one loss and it's over, the added pressure in those games is up rampant. How do you set up your season throughout the year, where you kind of just hinted at over the weekend where your team didn't feel the pressure, but how do you challenge your team throughout the year, Coach Sewell, to where when you get to this time, it doesn't feel the pressure that maybe those of us on the outside can feel when you're doing those games, broadcasting it or watching it as a fan?
Yeah, I think you can sense the edge, right? The edginess, like tiptoe, whereas I think in the past few years we've really worked hard on understanding, to go one game at a time long before we get to a situation where we need to go one game at a time. I think that's where our program is really set up to do it anyway, to rely on each other versus, just one aspect of our, just the pitchers have to hold it, or just the defense, or just the offense. So I think we're culturally just really ready to play that sort of tournament. And we talk about it. We don't hide from it. We don't stick it in a closet and act like it doesn't exist. We have a language for it, and we'll say, hey, let's just do today. And we also stick to a pretty strict routine about it. We don't get out of sorts and try to overcoach or over scout or over practice. I think that's when you can really spook a team. Like, we need to be more than what we already have been. We just sort of stick to the plan, and I think our vets know, and they'll have our younger players understanding, hey, it's still softball. We've been more than enough all year long. We have exactly who we need in the room to do this thing. Let's just go do it, and we'll go one out at a time and one at bat at a time, and it's really set up itself already for that experience.
Well, you mentioned there's still a possibility you could see Murray again in the tournament with
Yeah.
them being matched up with UIC. Also on your side of the bracket is Illinois State, the host in the 4th spot. Bradley will play Valpo in the 5-12 game, which you saw Bradley. So Valpo and Illinois State are the only two teams you haven't seen on your side of the bracket. It's probably not fair for me to ask you a question of what do you think of your side of the bracket and the matchups as you go forward. But of the teams on the side, those you've seen, those you haven't seen, what stands out about the path that your team would have to get ultimately to the championship?
Yeah, I think it it doesn't surprise me that Murray popped right back in there. And honestly, UIC is so far away at this point, and they're just such a better club. They played us really hard at home, and they've played really well and have really risen up into that spot, and super impressed with the work that they've done. Murray's probably an injury too away from just being even higher than where they are, and played us three really tough games. So it's hard to beat somebody 4 times, as you know. So that's an always interesting first matchup. And anytime you see an Illinois State club who's incredibly well coached at home, that's going to be an interesting game for us. But I think the one thing we've never focused on is really the path, because the path is really unpredictable in that sense. You saw what happened last year. You never know what is going to happen in that tournament. And I think it's one of the best tournaments, honestly, in the postseason to watch. It has so many surprises. It has so many heroes in it. People that just, you hear about the first teamers and the players of the year and the pitchers of the year, but then there's always one or two players in that tournament that step up big, that come out of nowhere and play really well.
How important is that aspect of it to win a tournament? Many people, look, Jackie Liss is going to make plays, or there's so many players on your team, Bailey, whomever, that you can point to, Mattia, that they're going to show up and play at their level. And it's not that someone that's unexpected to the term, because you have expectations for all of your players, but to win a championship, especially in a tournament setting, you get scouted so well throughout the years. You said most teams already have 3 games against you at least. How massive is it that you're going to need somebody that maybe hasn't had a role day to day all year, that maybe it's just one pitch hit situation in a game, or what pinch running situation, that is the moment they need to shine? Because any team that goes through a tournament, there aren't very many tournament championships, Coach Sewell. You go, yeah, we got all the results expected from the expected players. It's sometimes, oh, man, I remember when this person just came out of nowhere to have just a week of their life, or just a really important game that was crucial to you winning the title.
Well, I think it happened this weekend already. Liss and Warwick that were scouted very well. And I'll tell you who has been, there's 3 kids that have been absolutely killing it in our lineup, and I think you'll see them in the tournament at some point do something big. Aaron Lee at second base has played her buns off and has hit the ball incredibly well, hitting in like the 340s, I think, in Valley play, and has played her buns off defensively too. Rylan Groff, I think, picked up the first RBI out of the 8th spot in the Murray series, and Katherine Johnson's as hot as anybody right now. And those kids have worked themselves into the lineup and worked themselves into better situations. It pretty much, in typical fashion, Murray sort of shut down the top of our lineup for a little bit, and it was the Austin, Johnson, Kaler, Groff, and Lee that really set us up in those games. And I think it's going to be players like that. Hamilton's going to play well, Jones is going to play well, Liss is going to shine in big moments. But it's going to be somebody like that, like an Aaron Lee, who I think is really going to have a big weekend.
You know how important this week is, Coach, for all the reasons. You want this season to continue after this week, and the one guaranteed way you got is to go out and win the tournament this week in Bloomington Normal. What would it mean for you to accomplish another championship right on the cusp of you guys winning the regular season, to then have the opportunity to do something that's only been done once in program history, which was back in 1991, which was to win the regular season and then win the tournament? Both are extremely hard to
Right.
win in their own right, but to do it in the same season, gosh, it's almost like with all the seniors and the historic careers that they've had, it's just almost fitting that this would be the way to end it for them.
Yeah, I think, if the coaching staff could, and you can't gift it to them, but if you could, give them the greatest memory, and that's to take this team to a regional. I think what people forget is we've really felt like this team could be in a regional final game, and win a couple games in a regional and go very deep. And that's another goal that we've had, is, we've been to a regional, and that's great. But we set our calendar up this year to go much deeper, than just a couple of games in a regional. We talked about that in January. We talked about it every day that we had two-a-days in January. What's it going to look like come this week, and then what's it going to look like next week? So there's definitely on our calendar. We're planning to be here this week, next week, and even the week after. And we talked about what level of work it's going to require, because the level that we were working at was only getting us 2 games in the regional. So what's it going to take to win a game and get on into that regional final and be there? So not only is there sort of an expectation, it's just we've set that schedule up. And our upperclassmen we joke with them, but they're old ladies in the sense that, they've had that experience, right? The cool part is to add the regular season title, but where they're really good, and I mean really good, is in a situation where it's not that they don't have the pressure, they know the pressure, they understand the pressure, they've been in it, and they can really, it's not even a level that you have to rise to. They've been training there for a long time, so it's not, we don't need to tap into more, we don't have to be more. We're there, and we have to go out and execute. We know that, and we have even more parts and pieces than we had last year.
Well, all games this week, yes, they're televised, but Mike Trude will be there in Bloomington Normal as well for Saluki Radio. So all the games from here on out through the tournament this week, and we hope for a couple more weeks as well. We'll be covering Saluki softball throughout the rest of the year. Coach Sewell, it's been so much fun to catch up with you throughout the regular season, the tournament. I look forward to more conversations here as we go along. But good luck this week. Your team's been so much fun to watch, and man, hope we have a lot of games this week and a lot more smiles this week too.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.